Okay, so I did do a brief inspection of my garden, and from what I could see with my mortal eye, it doesn't appear that I've had any major calamity that has gone on in my garden. Of course, again, that's with my mortal eye. Orchids can take a little bit of a while to really showcase symptoms, so that doesn't mean they are in the clear. And that was just a brief overview of some of the damages that were sustained by my orchids during the frosty conditions. And as you can see, some of those orchids really did battle it out with the frost. And as a matter of fact, there may be some that won't survive. And this year, I actually had the opportunity of witnessing something that my orchids had never done before. You see, usually during the winter times, I do not have any of my orchids outdoors in bud, bloom, or in spike. And this was the first year that I actually had all three. And I do have to tell you, I am just so shocked and so relieved to see these blooms still intact, even through the frosty weather. And also all of the spikes, as you can see here, are still intact as well, including this one that shall bloom soon and very soon. Thank goodness. So I'll be sure to take all of these in so that we can enjoy their beautiful blooms. And the only thing that I could see differently that I actually did in this year was the fact that I did incorporate a new method to my orchids. And that would be these miraculous fertilizer tea bags. As you can see right there, also right there, and hanging way up in the tree as well. And if you guys want more information on the fertilizer tea bags, you can actually click on the link right here and it'll take you to that video where I show you exactly how I make it, and I also show you how it works. Now, finding buds and also spikes were good and bad news, because as you guys know, we were dealing with some pretty cold temperatures, including frosty conditions. So indeed, we just didn't know what would transpire. And the major question was, with all of the horrific damages that were sustained by my orchids, did they actually have enough strength and energy to actually produce the blooms? Because we're talking about orchids that were frostbitten. We're talking about orchids that still needed to have enough energy for them to recover themselves, let alone try to produce some blooms. So can they do it? And the first orchid that we're going to be taking a look at is this Vanda Kun Nook times with a Pine River. And this beautiful orchid I did get last year from the Miami Orchid Show, and I received it from Moat's Orchid. Now, it did bloom for me twice last year. I got to enjoy it, and I was hoping that I would get some more blooms this year, but as you guys can see, it did sustain some pretty horrific damages from the frosty conditions. But even as horrific as these battle wounds are, can you believe that this little girl is such a fighter? Oh my gosh, it is so hard to believe, seeing all of the damages and knowing what this orchid went through, that she indeed is still so very loving, and she is determined to show the world that she is indeed quite a beautiful bloomer, regardless to what she has gone through. And here we have another Vanda that also sustained some damages during that frosty condition, as you can see here. Indeed, those are her battle wounds, and she was also in spike, and bam, there it is again, another blooming spike without any buds lost. blooming so beautifully and without a problem. Check that beauty out. The only thing that I did notice is a slight wrinkling at the bottom of her sepals, as you can see there. Minor cosmetic blemish, but of course that is in no comparison to the damages that she went through, and to even see her be capable of blooming the way she is without any bud loss is quite amazing to me. And do you guys remember this Cattleya right here? This is also one that had endured the cold temperatures, the frosty condition, and she was actually in bud at the time, and I wasn't really quite sure if she was going to make it. But guess what, folks? Those buds did make it, and voila! Oh my goodness! She is beginning to bloom. Take a look at that. How beautiful is that? Indeed, she also is such a powerful bloomer. And here's yet another one as well. And she also encountered the same frosty conditions and also made it with flying colors without any damages to her blooms at all, not losing a single bud. And you know what? This is actually her first time she has bloomed for us. So to see her be able to pull those blooms through is quite incredible. And I do love this very subtle beauty. I love the infusion of the colors, very creamy and very bright. Yet she has some dark undertones in the lip as well. And because this is her very first time in bloom, I hope you guys don't mind that I'm going to take just a little bit longer to admire her blooms. Because although she is a subtle beauty, I don't know if you could see in there the light pastel colors that are just infused together, creating such a wonderful color combination in this blossom. And I don't know, it just seems to be iridescent in a sense, just glowing, those very light pastel colors. And then to see the actual lip giving a deeper color right there, a nice salmon color, yet has a somewhat of an olive color in there as well. Indeed, just a beautiful bloomer right here. And to think this is her first time she has ever bloomed, I am so glad that she made it and weathered through that temperature, those frosty conditions. I am so happy. And here's some great news for Team Cattleya. This is a mounted Cattleya that I have, and I got it last year from the Miami Orchid Show. And indeed, this is my golf green hair pig, and I got some good news on her. For she indeed is progressing forward, and she is carrying on from that frosty weather, because now she is with child, or with child bud, that is, because right now, as you can see right there, she is in sheath, and we are hoping that she will come into bloom for the very first time for us, and very soon. And this orchid right here was my double spiker. You guys remember that one? Well, indeed, they both have come into bloom, and actually still coming into bloom, as you can see right here, with this one still beginning to open right there. And with this orchid, we actually experienced like about 3 buds that were lost. So indeed, there were some buds that did not survive. But hey, we have double blooms here, so it more than makes up for the ones that were lost. And on this spike right here, we didn't have any loss of buds at all. So indeed, 2 spikes that were able to bud even during the frosty condition. Okay, folks, is it just me or is it just me? Does it seem like this little orchid right here has a face that is smiling? Oh my gosh, she is smiling. How adorable is that with its smiley face? And I have to tell you, I think she's smiling because she is so happy that they weathered the storm. And indeed, I'm smiling right back at you. Smile on, little orchid, smile on. And you guys already know how hardy my Brassavola hybrid is right here. Mounted into my tree and staying here all year round, even through all of the frosty conditions. And she indeed survives through it all, blooming with beautiful colors. And here's some more good news. This is from Moat's Orchids that I ordered online about a year ago. And as you can see, she too sustained some damages from the frosty weather. But look here. Yay! It is a first-time spiker. And indeed, I cannot wait to see what it looks like. And this one right here is my Varicorn Morillii cross. And if we take a look right here, bam! There you see it. The blooms have blossomed. Indeed, look at that, and quite a beautiful number of these very glossy, very shiny, very waxy, very fully formed. Look at that amazing bloom right here. And you guys know my favorite part of this bloom is the mermaid tail of a lip that it has. Do you see that mermaid tail? How beautiful is that? Quite a character to this orchid. Indeed, a beautiful, beautiful bloomer and blooming in numbers. And last but never least is my Denisoniana cross with an insignia. And there goes her beautiful blooms right there. Now she did lose 3 of her buds, unfortunately. But you know what? I am just so very happy to be capable of enjoying her remaining and beautiful flowers. And indeed, one thing I love about these blooms is that they are so unique looking. Definitely has a nice curve appeal right there in her petals. And as you're seeing, it's a nice coloration of a rusty type of orange. And also in the lip, you're seeing that salmon pink color there as well. Definitely has some tessellations and some patterns to her petals as well, as you can see. Definitely very nice, very waxy, very glossy, very nice texture in her petals as well, very firm. It is not a flimsy blossom. And the best feature of this orchid that I do have to say is she is one of the most fragrant bloomers that I have. And her fragrance lasts from day to night. And so heavenly is it as well. It smells somewhat of a plumeria crossed with a jasmine, if you can imagine that. Very bold scent, very strong scent, and indeed just quite lovely. So regardless to what we go through, folks, with our trials and also our tribulations, with our orchids or even our own personal lives, it's so very important that we see the silver lining within each darkened cloud and know that the storms have not come to stay. And yes, indeed, there will be a brighter orchid day. Stay positive, folks, and know that I do truly love you guys all.